The alarm had been screaming for 3 minutes when Nathan Price finally understood that Earth's isolation was over. Commander Nathan Price stood in the center of the Earth Defense Station, watching red dots multiply across the radar screens like an infection spreading through clean water. Each dot represented a ship. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a city. There were 147 dots on the screen now, and they kept coming. "Confirm identification," Nathan said. His voice was calm, but his hands were not. He kept them flat on the control panel so no one would notice them shaking. The young technician at the sensor station, a woman named Sarah with dark eyes and nervous fingers, turned to him. "It is them, Commander. The Draconian Empire. Spectral analysis matches every database record. Weapons signatures match. They are coming straight toward Earth." Nathan had known this moment would come eventually. The Galactic Council had warned Earth for 15 years that the Draconian Empire would eventually find them. The Draconians had conquered 23 worlds. They had destroyed entire fleets. They had never lost a battle. They had never shown mercy. But knowing something would happen and watching it actually happen were two different things. The Draconian Empire was not like other alien species. They did not negotiate. They did not trade. They did not make peace. The Draconians conquered worlds, took their resources, enslaved their people, and moved on to the next target. When a species resisted, the Draconians destroyed them completely. There was no middle ground with the Draconians. There was only victory or death. "How long until they reach orbital distance?" Nathan asked. 22 hours, 17 minutes, Sarah said. "At current speed." Nathan turned away from the screens and walked to the observation window. From this height, Earth looked small and fragile. He could see the blue oceans, the green continents, the white clouds swirling in the atmosphere. Somewhere down there, billions of people were going about their lives, not knowing that their world was about to change forever. Some of those people would not survive the next day. The radio crackled to life. General Morrison's voice came through, hard and without emotion. "All commanders, we have confirmation. This is no longer a drill. Draconian fleet inbound. Earth Defense Council is meeting now. All military personnel report to stations immediately. This is not a drill." Nathan pressed the communication button. "All stations, red alert. I repeat, all stations, red alert. This is not a simulation. All non-essential personnel proceed to underground bunkers immediately. Combat personnel report to stations. This is not a simulation." The station came alive with movement. Men and women began running to their positions. Some looked scared. Most looked determined. These were soldiers and pilots and engineers who had trained for this moment, even though most of them had never believed it would actually happen. Nathan returned to the center of the station. The screens now showed 193 Draconian ships. They were still coming. "Sarah, send a message to all Earth governments," Nathan said. "Inform them of the situation. Tell them we are preparing defenses. Tell them to move civilians to bunkers immediately. Should we attempt communication with the Draconians?" Sarah asked. Nathan did not answer right away. Communication with the Draconians had been attempted by 3 other species before they were conquered. The Draconians had never responded to any offer of peace. They simply demanded surrender and waited. If a species chose to fight, the Draconians destroyed them. If a species chose to surrender, the Draconians conquered them and enslaved their population. "Yes," Nathan finally said. "Open a channel on all frequencies. I will speak to them." Sarah worked the controls. A few seconds later, she nodded. "Channel is open, Commander." Nathan stepped forward, straightening his uniform jacket. When he spoke, his voice came through all the radios on the station. In all the military bases across Earth, and out into the darkness of space toward the approaching Draconian fleet. This is Commander Nathan Price of Earth Defense Command. I am the military leader of the planet Earth. I am transmitting this message to the commander of the Draconian fleet. We acknowledge your presence. We are prepared to defend our world. If you choose to attack us, you will face resistance. Nathan released the button. For 30 seconds, there was only static. Then, a new voice came through. The voice was deep and cold, like something grinding stone against stone. The words came through with a mechanical translation overlay that made them sound harsh and hostile. I am Admiral Cross of the Draconian Empire. Your world will surrender within 24 hours. All military installations will be dismantled. All weapons will be surrendered. All leaders will present themselves for judgment. If you choose to resist, your world will be destroyed. You have 24 hours to decide. The channel went dead. Nathan looked at Sarah. She was pale. Most of the station was pale. They had just been told that they had one day to surrender their world or watch it burn. Get me General Morrison, Nathan said, and contact every military base on the planet. I want all commanders on a secure video conference in 10 minutes. Also, wake up Dr. Helen Morris. Get her to my office immediately. We have a lot of work to do. As the station burst into controlled chaos, Nathan walked back to the observation window. Earth was still there below him, still blue and green and beautiful. But everything had changed. The question was no longer whether Earth would face the Draconian Empire. The question was whether Earth would survive it. Nathan had studied every battle the Draconians had ever fought. He knew their tactics. He knew their technology. He knew their record. Earth had nothing they had not already seen. Earth had no weapons the Draconians did not have better versions of. Earth had no military experience the Draconians had not already crushed dozens of times. By every logical measure, Earth had already lost, but Nathan Price had spent his entire military career studying human history. He had read about battles where smaller forces had defeated larger ones. He had read about impossible odds that had been overcome by creativity and determination and refusal to accept defeat. He had read about species that should have been wiped out but survived because they were willing to fight when others would have surrendered. Nathan did not know if Earth could win against the Draconians, but he knew that Earth would fight. The red dots continued to multiply on the radar screens. The Draconian fleet was getting closer. In 24 hours, everything would change. Nathan turned away from the window and walked back to the control center. There was work to do. Dr. Helen Morris had not slept in 36 hours. She did not plan to sleep again until the battle was over or Earth was destroyed. She was standing in front of 12 military commanders when Nathan entered the war room, pointing at a large holographic map of Earth's defensive network. This is what we have been building for 15 years, Helen said. Her voice was strong and clear. When the Council told us the Draconians would eventually find Earth, we started preparing. We built weapons they would not expect. We created strategies they would not anticipate. This is Project Phoenix. Nathan watched the map light up with hundreds of dots spread across every continent. The dots represented weapons, sensor arrays, fighter bases, and command centers that had been built in secret. Most of Earth's population did not even know these installations existed. The Draconians will expect traditional warfare, Helen continued. They will expect us to defend major cities with concentrated forces. They will expect frontal attacks and defense lines. What they will not expect is what we have planned. She activated a new projection. The map showed the Draconian fleet's current trajectory and speed. Helen drew lines across the map, showing attack paths from multiple locations simultaneously. We strike them here, and here the moment they enter Earth's orbit, Helen said. pointing to 3 different points. We use electromagnetic pulse weapons to disrupt their communication systems. While they are confused, we hit them with coordinated attacks from the Pacific base, the European station, and the African command center. We do not try to destroy their ships. We try to disable them. We try to create chaos in their command structure. What is our chance of success? General Morrison asked. He was an old man with gray hair and a face carved from stone by 40 years of military service. Against their weapons? Helen said honestly. Very low. Against their tactics? Much higher. The Draconians are powerful, but they are predictable. They are used to fighting enemies who break quickly. They are not used to enemies who refuse to stop fighting. That is where our advantage lies. Nathan stepped forward. How many pilots do we have that are ready for combat? 347, Helen said. The best pilots on Earth. We have been training them for 15 years for this exact scenario. And Kevin Graham? Nathan asked. Leading the Pacific Squadron, Helen said with a small smile. He has more flight hours than anyone else on the planet. If anyone can make the Draconians' technology look stupid, it will be Kevin. Kevin Graham was 28 years old and had grown up in the cockpit of a fighter jet. His father had been a pilot. His grandfather had been a pilot. Kevin had broken every flight record that existed. He did not just know how to fight in the air. He understood it at a level that made veteran pilots look slow. What about the communications disruption network? Nathan asked. Lisa Park is ready, Helen said. She has been managing the orbital platform network for 8 years. The moment the Draconians reach orbital distance, Lisa will activate the electromagnetic pulse array. It will disable their communication systems for approximately 4 minutes. That is when we attack. 4 minutes is not much time, General Morrison said. 4 minutes is an eternity in combat, Helen replied. 4 minutes is enough time for us to destroy their first wave of ships and cause massive confusion in their fleet. 4 minutes is enough time to show them that Earth is not a world they can simply destroy at their leisure. Nathan studied the map. Helen was right. The plan was dangerous. Many of their pilots would die. Many of their soldiers would die. But for the first time, Nathan could see a path forward that did not end with Earth's complete destruction. How many people know about this? Nathan asked. Officially? The Command Council and the presidents of Earth's major nations, Helen said. Unofficially? About 10,000 people who have worked on these installations over the years. We have kept it secret by compartmentalizing everything. No one worker knows the full picture. But the moment we need to activate this plan, all 10,000 will know exactly what to do. The Draconians will not know about any of this, Nathan said. No, Helen agreed. They will not. They think they are coming to a world with basic technology and no experience with galactic warfare. They will find instead a world that has been preparing for their arrival since the day we knew they existed. Over the next several hours, Helen and Nathan coordinated with military commanders across the planet. They briefed fighter pilots on evasion tactics that would make targeting them difficult. They coordinated with ground forces on supply lines and ammunition distribution. They made sure that every soldier, every pilot, every engineer understood what they were about to do. Nathan visited Kevin Graham at the Pacific Squadron base. Kevin was standing in the cockpit of his fighter jet, checking systems with the kind of attention to detail that had made him famous. Ready? Nathan asked. Kevin looked up from the control panel. He was young, with sharp features and intense eyes that had seen every angle of combat flying. More than ready, Kevin said. I have been waiting for this my entire life. You point the Draconians at me. I will show them what a human pilot can do. Nathan placed a hand on Kevin's shoulder. Our people are counting on you. I know, Kevin said. And I will not let them down. Nathan also visited Lisa Park at the Orbital Command Station. Lisa was a small woman with dark hair and brilliant mind that understood technology in ways that most humans never would. "The electromagnetic pulse array is ready," Lisa said immediately. "We tested it 6 months ago. It works perfectly. The moment I give the order, we can disable their entire communications network for up to 8 minutes. Can you keep it disabled?" Nathan asked. "Possibly," Lisa said. "But it depends on how quickly their engineers can restore communications. The longer we keep them disabled, the more time our forces have to attack." Nathan left the orbital station with a strange feeling in his chest. For 15 years, Earth had been preparing for this moment. For 15 years, people like Helen and Lisa and Kevin had been training and building and planning. For 15 years, Earth had been getting ready to fight. Nathan had thought that his people would face certain defeat when the Draconians arrived. But standing in that command center, looking at the plans Helen had shown him, Nathan began to believe that Earth had a chance. It was a small chance. It was a dangerous chance. But it was a chance. The Draconian fleet was still coming. But now Nathan knew that Earth would not go quietly. Now Nathan knew that Earth would fight. And sometimes, Nathan thought, fighting was all you needed to change the course of history. Kevin Graham watched the radar screen from his cockpit as the Draconian fleet entered Earth's orbital space. The dots on the screen looked like a swarm of insects moving toward a light. There were 203 enemy ships now, larger than before, and arranged in attack formations that showed the Draconians were not worried about any resistance at all. "All pilots, this is command." Lisa Park's voice came through the communication system. "Enemy fleet has reached orbital distance. Initiating electromagnetic pulse in 30 seconds. All attack squadrons prepare for launch." The ground beneath Kevin's fighter began to vibrate. The entire Pacific Squadron base was alive with activity. Mechanics were running across the tarmac. Pilots were climbing into their jets. Ground crews were loading ammunition and fuel. 347 pilots across the entire planet were preparing to launch simultaneously for the first time in human history. 20 seconds, Lisa said. Kevin ran through his pre-flight checks one more time. Everything was green. His weapon systems were armed. His engines were at full power. His cockpit displays showed the status of every other pilot in his squadron. They were all ready. They were all prepared to die. 10 seconds, Lisa said. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pulse. Activation. The entire sky above the Pacific Ocean lit up with an electromagnetic wave that traveled at the speed of light toward the Draconian fleet. The effect was instantaneous. Every communication system on every Draconian ship went dark simultaneously. Targeting computers went silent. Fire control systems went offline. For the first time in their empire's history, the Draconians were blind. "Go, go, go, go." Helen Morris's voice came through the communication system. "All squadrons launch immediately. Attack now." Kevin pushed his throttle to full power. His fighter screamed forward down the runway. The G-force pressed him back into his seat as he accelerated toward takeoff speed. Behind him, 124 other fighters from his squadron were doing the same thing, all launching within seconds of each other. The sky filled with human fighter jets. Kevin pulled back on the control stick and his fighter lifted off the ground. The other pilots around him did the same. The sky was suddenly full of Earth's best pilots, all moving toward the orbital space above the planet where the Draconian fleet was now blind and confused. The Draconian ships began to move, but without communications, they moved at random. Some tried to attack. Some tried to defend. Some simply maneuvered without any clear purpose. It was chaos in the Draconian formation. Kevin's targeting system locked onto the nearest Draconian fighter. The alien ship was large and powerful, with weapons that had destroyed planets. But without its communication system, it could not coordinate with other ships. It was alone. Kevin fired his first missile. The missile streaked through space and struck the Draconian fighter dead center. The explosion lit up the sky like a second sun. The Draconian ship fell apart like paper. "First blood," Kevin said into his radio. "All pilots, weapons hot." Repeat, weapons hot. Attack at will. The sky erupted into chaos. Missiles fired from 300 human fighters streaked toward Draconian ships. Some missed. Most hit. Draconian ships began to fall from the sky, but the Draconians were not defenseless. After 30 seconds, their communication systems began to restore. Ships that had been flying blind suddenly came back under control. Defense weapons started firing. Some human fighters exploded. Some pilots died. But the Draconians were still disorganized, still confused, still trying to understand what had happened. Kevin dove toward another Draconian cruiser. The alien ship was massive, at least 2 kilometers long. It had more weapons than Kevin could count. But it was slow. And slow was the one thing that would kill a Draconian ship against human pilots. Kevin fired his full complement of missiles at the approaching cruiser. The weapons struck hard. The cruiser's armor held, but part of its shield generator was damaged. The ship slowed as it tried to compensate for the damage. "All squadrons, focus fire on the damaged cruiser," Kevin commanded. "Let it down." Repeat, let it down. 50 human fighters changed their course at the same moment and converged on the wounded Draconian ship. Missiles and laser fire poured into the damaged section. The cruiser's shields failed. A direct hit penetrated its armor. Secondary explosions followed. The entire ship came apart in a ball of fire that was visible all the way down to Earth's surface. The Draconians had lost a capital-class cruiser. They had never lost a capital-class cruiser to anyone before. Admiral Cross, commanding the Draconian fleet from his flagship, could not believe what he was seeing. His fleet had been attacked by a world that should have had no military technology more advanced than ground-based weapons. But instead, he was facing hundreds of fast, maneuverable fighter jets that moved with precision and coordination that should not have been possible. "All ships, resume formation," Cross commanded. But the command was slow reaching some of the ships because some communication systems were still recovering. The Draconians tried to organize, but human pilots were faster and more unpredictable than anything they had ever faced. Helen Morris was watching everything from the Earth Command Center. She was sitting in a chair surrounded by screens showing the battle from multiple angles. The data was showing her exactly what she needed to see. The Draconians were faltering. "All ground bases, prepare second-wave attacks," Helen commanded. "We have 30 minutes before their shield network fully restores. Use every missile we have. I repeat, use every weapon we have." From bases across the planet, long-range missiles began launching toward the orbital space where the Draconian fleet fought human fighters. The missiles came from Europe, from Africa, from Asia, from America. The sky became filled with moving fire that streaked toward the alien fleet. The Draconian ships tried to dodge. They tried to defend. But they were still disorganized. Missiles hit shields. Shields failed. Ships began to fall. After 45 minutes of continuous fighting, the Draconian fleet pulled back. They moved away from Earth's orbital space, regrouping and repairing. The human fighters chased them as far as they could before their fuel became critical and they had to return to their bases. Kevin landed his fighter on the runway of the Pacific Squadron base with his fuel gauge reading empty. He had achieved 4 kills in a single day. Other pilots landed around him, some damaged, some intact, but most alive. Of the 347 fighters that had launched, 298 were returning. 49 human pilots had died, but 2 Draconian Capital-class cruisers had been destroyed. 17 smaller ships had been damaged beyond repair. Dozens more had taken significant damage. And for the first time in their empire's history, the Draconians had been beaten in direct combat. Nathan was standing in the command center when Helen turned to him. Her face was streaked with sweat. Her eyes were bright with intensity. "We hurt them," Helen said simply. "They will attack again. But we hurt them, and they are not used to being hurt." Nathan nodded slowly. Earth had drawn first blood against the Draconian Empire. The battle had only just begun, but humanity had shown that it could fight. More importantly, humanity had shown that it could win. The Draconian fleet regrouped in space, silent and dangerous. They were preparing for another attack. But this time, they would be more careful. This time, they would not underestimate the world below. Admiral Cross was not a commander who accepted defeat easily. But he was also not a fool. The data from the first battle was clear. His fleet had been damaged. 17 ships had been destroyed completely. 43 more had sustained damage that would take days to repair. And worst of all, they had been beaten by a primitive world that should not have had the technology to threaten a single Draconian warship. Cross convened his war council in his flagship's command chamber. The gathered officers represented the most experienced military minds in the Draconian Empire. They had all participated in the conquest of 23 worlds. None of them had ever suffered a defeat like this. "The humans are not primitive," Cross said bluntly. "That much is now clear. They have hidden their true military capabilities. They have prepared for our arrival. We underestimated them. That will not happen again." Commander Vex, the fleet's second officer, spoke from across the table. "The humans cannot win, Admiral. Our forces still outnumber them significantly. Their weapons are damaged from the first battle. They cannot sustain another engagement at this intensity." But Cross was looking at the battle data more carefully now. He was studying the pattern of human attacks, the timing of their strikes, the coordination between their forces. What he saw troubled him deeply. "The humans have been planning this engagement for years," Cross said. "This was not improvisation. This was preparation. They knew we were coming. They knew how we would attack. They built their defenses around defeating our tactics." For the first time in his military career, Cross felt something he had never expected to feel. He felt fear. Meanwhile, on Earth, things were not as successful as they appeared. The battle had cost the planet dearly. Many of the underground weapons bases had been damaged. Supply lines were stretched thin. And the Draconians had not gone away. They were still there, still dangerous, still coming back for another attack. General Morrison convened the War Council in the Earth Command Center. The room was filled with military leaders from every continent. They looked tired. They looked scared. But they were still fighting. "The Draconians will attack again within 6 hours," General Morrison said. "We need to use that time to repair our damaged systems and restock our ammunition. We need to rest our pilots. We need to prepare for the next engagement. Can we win if they attack again?" A general from the African Union, S. Helen Morris, stood up. She had not slept since the first battle began. Her voice was hoarse, but her mind was sharp. "No," Helen said. "If they attack with full force and concentrated firepower, we cannot stop them. We can damage them. We can kill their pilots and destroy their ships. But eventually, their numbers and their weapons will overwhelm our defenses." The room went silent. "Then we need a different strategy," Helen continued. "We cannot win a prolonged battle of attrition, but we can win a battle of psychology. The Draconians are used to enemies who break. They are used to species that surrender after the first loss. They are not used to resistance that gets stronger after a defeat. Nathan leaned forward. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting we hit them again, Helen said. Not just with fighters. With everything we have. I want to send a strike team directly to their flagship. I want to capture their command center and their communication systems. I want to show them that we do not just defend. We attack. We do not just resist. We counterattack. That is suicide, the Japanese commander said. Their flagship is protected by their entire fleet. Yes, Helen agreed. It is. But what do we have to lose? If we do nothing, they will attack us again and destroy us. If we send a strike team, we might capture intelligence about their fleet. We might disrupt their command structure. We might give ourselves a chance. Nathan stood up. I will lead the strike team. No, General Morrison said. I will lead it. You are the commander of Earth Defense. You need to stay here and coordinate the battle. They argued for 10 minutes. Finally, they agreed that Helen would lead the strike team. She was the best military strategist on Earth. If anyone could infiltrate a draconian flagship and survive, it was Helen. The strike team was assembled quickly. 30 of the best soldiers on Earth, equipped with captured draconian weapons and armor. They flew toward the draconian fleet in a stolen transport ship that had been captured during the first battle and fitted with draconian identification codes. Helen sat in the pilot's seat, watching the draconian fleet get larger and larger as they approached. The flagship was a massive ship, easily 5 kilometers long. It was surrounded by escort ships that would destroy any human vessel that came too close. Transmitting identification codes, the co-pilot said. Codes are accepted. They think we are a damaged draconian transport requesting assistance. The flagship opened a docking bay. Helen flew the transport directly into it. The strike team moved through the draconian ship with precision. The aliens were not expecting an attack from inside their own vessel. The humans were able to move through the corridors and reach the command center before significant resistance formed. The battle inside the flagship was brutal and quick. Humans fought draconians in corridors designed by alien architects. Human weapons cut through draconian armor. Draconian weapons burned through human bodies. But the humans had the advantage of surprise. They reached the command center and fought their way inside. Helen burst through the command center door. Inside, Admiral Cross was standing at a holographic display showing the battle situation. He looked up in shock at the human who had just invaded his most protected space. Helen raised her weapon. For a moment, she could kill the entire draconian command structure right here. But that was not the goal. The goal was to capture the data, to disrupt their communications, to show them that Earth was not going to surrender. Helen's soldiers moved through the command center, uploading data from the draconian computer systems. They captured everything: fleet positions, ship specifications, battle plans, everything that would help Earth fight this enemy. Time to go, Helen said. Now, the strike team fought their way back to the transport ship. Half of them were wounded. Several did not make it. But Helen made it. The co-pilot fired the engines as soon as the last soldier was aboard. The draconian escort ships tried to stop them, but the transport ship was fast. Helen flew it away from the flagship, with weapons fire burning the hull behind her. They made it back to Earth orbit with the draconian data intact. The intelligence Helen's team brought back changed everything. Nathan and his strategists now had access to complete information about the draconian fleet. They could see the weaknesses in their defensive formations. They could understand the capabilities and limitations of their weapon systems. They could begin to plan a final attack that would end this war. But more importantly, the raid on the draconian flagship did something else. It showed Admiral Cross that the humans were willing to attack him directly. It showed him that Earth was not just defending. Earth was fighting to win. For the first time in his career, Cross began to question whether he could actually win this war. Helen returned to the command center, bleeding from a wound in her shoulder, but alive. Nathan embraced her as the entire room erupted in cheers. Earth had done the impossible. Earth had attacked the Draconians on their own flagship and lived to tell the tale. The mood in the command center changed from desperation to determination. Humans had proven they could fight. Now, they would prove they could win. The data that Helen's strike team had captured from the Draconian flagship changed everything about how Earth fought this war. Nathan and his strategists studied the enemy's fleet composition, their shield frequencies, their ship capabilities, and their command structure. Every piece of information revealed weaknesses that the Draconians had never needed to hide before because they had never faced an opponent who could exploit them. Marcus Webb was a young engineer who had been working on weapons development for Earth defense for 15 years. When Nathan showed him the Draconian data, Marcus immediately saw what they needed to do. Their power systems are based on a crystalline frequency that resonates at a specific wavelength, Marcus explained, pointing to the holographic data floating in the command center. If we can generate an electromagnetic pulse at that exact frequency, we can disrupt their power systems completely. Not just their communications. Their entire ship will go dark. How long to build this weapon? Nathan asked. 48 hours, Marcus said. We can manufacture 3 of them. That is enough to take down their 3 remaining capital-class cruisers. Nathan turned to Helen. Can we keep their fleet engaged for 48 hours? Yes, Helen said. But it will cost us. More pilots will die. More soldiers will die. But I can keep them engaged. Over the next 2 days, the battle for Earth continued. Kevin Graham and his pilots flew sortie after sortie against the Draconian fleet. Each time they fought, the humans used the stolen data to exploit the enemy's weaknesses. Each time the Draconians tried to reorganize, they found human fighters waiting for them in positions they did not expect, but the Draconians were learning too. They began changing their tactics. They began consolidating their forces instead of spreading them out. They began using coordinated attacks that were harder to counter. And they began to cause more human casualties. 200 more human pilots died over those 2 days. The bases across Earth lost thousands of soldiers. The supply lines became so stretched that rationing was becoming necessary. Earth was being bled dry in the effort to hold back the Draconian fleet. But Marcus Webb was working around the clock in his laboratory, building the frequency weapon. He used computers that were designed in Earth's most advanced research centers. He used materials that had been mined from the moon and processed in orbital factories. And he built 3 weapons that could generate an electromagnetic pulse precisely tuned to destroy Draconian power systems. When Marcus finally finished the weapons, he called Nathan directly. They are ready, Marcus said. The weapons are ready. Nathan moved the 3 weapons into position on 3 different continents. When the Draconian fleet made its next major attack, the weapons would be activated. The 3 remaining capital-class cruisers would lose all power simultaneously. And then Earth's forces would overwhelm them. The Draconians attacked at dawn. Their fleet moved toward Earth with the kind of coordinated aggression that had destroyed 23 worlds. But this time, Earth was ready. The moment the Draconian ships came within range, Marcus activated the frequency weapons. 3 waves of electromagnetic energy shot up from Earth at the speed of light. The waves struck 3 Draconian capital-class cruisers at the exact moment they were powering up their weapons systems. All 3 ships went dark at the same time. Kevin Graham was flying above the Indian Ocean when he saw it happen. 3 of the largest ships in the Draconian fleet suddenly went silent. Their lights went out. Their weapons stopped firing. Their engines went dark. All squadrons, attack now, Kevin commanded. Take them down. Repeat, take them down. Human fighters converged on the disabled ships like sharks seeing blood in the water. Missiles poured from 300 fighter jets. The Draconian cruisers tried to restore power, but their engineers could not find the source of the disruption. The ships were dead, floating helplessly in space. The missiles struck. The cruisers began to fall apart. The first one exploded in a massive blast that could be seen from Earth's surface. The second one broke into pieces, its internal structure failing without power to maintain structural integrity. The third one burned from the inside out as fire spread through its corridors. Unchecked, all 3 capital-class cruisers were destroyed in minutes. Admiral Cross watched from his flagship as the last of his 3 largest ships died. He had fought in 23 wars. He had conquered 23 worlds. He had never lost a capital-class cruiser. Now he had lost 3 of them. And worse, he still did not know how the humans had done it. He still did not know what technology they had used. He still did not know how to defend against it. Cross made a decision that no Draconian commander had ever made before. He made the decision to retreat. All ships, disengage from combat, Cross commanded. Set course for deep space. We are leaving this system. The Draconian fleet pulled away from Earth. They moved away from the planet that had defeated them. They moved toward the outer reaches of the solar system, their ships damaged and their morale broken. The Draconian fleet, which had never lost to anyone, was running away from a world that should not have had the technology to threaten them. Helen Morris was standing in the command center when the last Draconian ship left Earth's orbital space. She looked at Nathan and smiled despite her exhaustion. "We did it," Helen said. "We actually did it." Kevin Graham was still flying when he got the order to stand down. He looked at his radar and saw that the Draconian ships were actually leaving. They were retreating. They were running. Kevin's entire squadron erupted in cheers through the communication system. Human pilots who had fought continuously for 3 days began to cry. They had won. They had actually won against the Draconian Empire. Nathan issued the order to stand down the defense network. The fighter squadrons were recalled to their bases. The orbital platforms were powered down. The ground-based weapon systems were put into safe mode. Earth had survived. Earth had won. As the Draconian fleet disappeared from view, heading toward the hyperspace jump point that would take them out of the solar system. Lisa Park was in the orbital command center monitoring their departure. "They are leaving," Lisa said into the communication system. "All Draconian ships are departing Earth space. They are moving toward jump point. Estimate 30 minutes until they jump to hyperspace." Nathan stood in the command center and watched the radar screen as the red dots representing the Draconian fleet got smaller and smaller. The dots that had represented an existential threat to human civilization were now just disappearing from the screen. The war was over. Earth had won. Outside the command center, across every city on Earth, celebrations began. People came out of the underground bunkers where they had been hiding. They looked up at the sky that was no longer filled with Draconian ships. They embraced each other. They cried tears of joy. Earth had faced the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Earth had held. Earth had fought back. Earth had won. As the last Draconian ship disappeared into hyperspace and left the solar system forever, one thing became clear to every species in the galaxy. The Draconian Empire, which had been feared for 1,000 years, was not invincible. And if humans could defeat them, then maybe everyone else could too.